Hi guys, welcome to part 5 of our org mode codec work. So as I said in the previous part, it's been a bit of a hit and miss series really, because we've been skipping a lot of the actual work because we find it a bit too difficult to do the work whilst recording, but we're trying to record as much as possible, I guess. So where we are now is, excuse me, in fact we have a lot of browser windows, so a lot of the work we've been doing so far, so let's get rid of a few of these. Don't really need any of these anymore. Right, okay, so let's have a quick look at what the commits say. So since the last video we pretty much finished all the work on round-tripping org mode. So in the previous video we were trying to work really hard to get sort of a transform. Let's just recap that. We had in the org model we had a transform to convert a document to a string that was not yet implemented, and we had the corresponding codec transform. If I could spot the codec transform. Right, so the codec transform would be this guy here. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to update the model to org artifact transform. Instead of having a quick hack that we had built previously, where we would just stringify, I guess, the model on the fly, we wanted to first convert it over to an org model, which is one of these guys here, and then have a transform of that model that would convert that over to a string. And so we've implemented all of that, and that seems to work okay. Which basically means that now the core transforms for org are actually doing the right things. We didn't really finish the job, which was to go through all the different cases where we are creating org models on the fly. We haven't updated all of those. We will before the sprint is over, hopefully. But that was kind of the gist of that work. And then what we did then is we thought we'd be clever, and then we just went away and removed all of the JSON and the dia models in Dogen. Now, besides the fact that that caused a whole lot of problems, as you can see here, there's a lot of fallout from that. But the biggest problem that we figured out was that once we removed JSON and dia models, we lose a lot of testing ability for those two codecs. What I mean by this is that up to now, for the last 6 years or so, Dogen has been developed using mainly dia, and we synced the JSON codecs quite frequently. So these two codecs have been pretty reliable, I guess you could say, because there's so many models using so many different features. So we are pretty confident that they work. When we remove these codecs, well, in other words, when we removed all of these models, we lost the ability to test across all these use cases, because of course our reference implementation is not quite as comprehensive as Dogen itself. This is by design, because we always assume that since Dogen is used to build Dogen, that it's actually test. It just saves us on having to have special code. Once we stopped having Dogen as an instance of a use of dia and JSON models, then we started to get a little bit worried that both JSON and dia would start to bitrot a bit, because since the focus is now in org, we would start ignoring those codecs. Now, while I'm not super keen on doing work for no reason, but I think it's sensible to say that if the models are working at present, no changes should make things worse, if you see what I mean. So we should at least keep these models on par with what we've got for org. So a bit of a loss to lose these models, because then we lose that testing ability. So at that point we had this moment of enlightenment, and we thought about creating what we call frozen, which is basically a snapshot of Dogen just before we remove the codecs, the models in those codecs. And what we can do is, just like we do with the reference implementation in C# and C++, we can just run Dogen against those frozen models and make sure that it generates the frozen code. So it's just basically a snapshot of Dogen in time. So that's still a pretty good way of testing Dogen, because there's so many models and so many different permutations. So if it passes those tests, then it should be okay. So what we've done is we created a frozen project. We've implemented the tests for that frozen project in terms of the same approach as we had for reference implementations. Managed to get all those tests to pass, and now we are kind of in a position to redo this story to remove JSON. In fact, to be honest, we probably should mark this as started rather than completed, because we had to undo that story. However, one thing we'd like to do before we do that is we'd like to regenerate the org mode models. There's a couple of changes that need to go in before we can jettison the dia and the JSON models. And the reason why is because it just takes a while. I mean, I could of course change this manually afterwards, but it just takes a while to go through every single model and change things. So we just want to make sure that the org models are looking as close as possible as to the final objective, I guess, as much as possible, basically, just to avoid having to have loads of work, manual work, to be done afterwards. So we got these two stories that we want to slot in, and then we will go back to the story of removing the JSON and dia models. And then Dogen is going to go in his own merry way from the fork in Frozen, which will be quite a different merry way. Also, the other thing we want to do as well is not necessarily related to this, but add models directory to each component. So what we want to do is instead of a product level models directory, we should have separate component level directories. We can't do the PMM implementation just yet, but we can use regexes to get the directory in the correct shape, and then target, and then use it to target the changes in PMM. So in other words, one story that we forgot to backlog is that we shouldn't really have a top level models directory. So at the moment, as you can see here, we have a top level models directory. There's nothing wrong with that approach, but the thing is, we're realizing more and more that the models themselves are artifacts, and because they're artifacts which can be projected as well, we should really have within each model a part that's modeling in fact, instead of models. The directory should be called modeling to reflect the fact that it will contain more than models. So we're going to put a whole lot of stuff in there, such as, for example, the logs are going to go in there and so on. Because it's a bit painful at present. We never quite know where to look for the logs by products, all that sort of stuff. We're not going to actually tackle all of that as part of this story, but this story is just to shape the directories in the right way. And in the future, there's going to be lots of things that are going to come off for that. But for now, we just want to make sure that everything is more or less in the right shape as much as possible, even given the constraints of the code generator at present. So we capture that. Okay, so now let's just look into the stories that we want to implement. So the two stories we want to implement are, first, we do not want the MASD prefix on the labels, the tags. The reason being that we would like to make use of the dia's automated way of tagging things. So in in org, you can press Control Q. Oh, interesting! It seems to actually remember the tags that are already been spotted. That is actually quite interesting. I thought that it needed to explicitly declare the tags, but it seems that org is clever enough, and it knows what the tags are. Oh, that's very nice. At any rate, I think it's still worthwhile doing this change because, well, for two reasons. First, because uh, the MASD prefix doesn't add a lot of value. We know that these models are in MASD mode, and by the fact that having MASD there is not going to add a lot of value. And the second thing is, if we do the prefixes, we can then use shortcut keys, which is useful. So we're just going to go and update all of these guys here to just use the short name and to have tags entry in org mode. That gives us gives us short keys. So if we have a quick look at how that looks like, something like this, you can see if you press the key E or A or M, the corresponding tag will come up, which seems sensible, and it seems easy enough. So what we need to do for this story, I think, is just to go to our transform, the codec transform, and just in the org. So around here we should have title somewhere, and there's the tag. So no, that's the headline. So if you look for the top level one, I mean affiliated keywords. Here we are. So it seems fairly straightforward to just change these guys. I think. We could just do something like this. So just put the tags here. And the key is tags, of course. And the value is pretty much all of this. And then we just have to push back the tags. Okay, so that's simple enough. And while we're here, we could just change the element, the tags here. In fact, to be honest, I think we just forgot to get rid of these ones. Right, so let's get rid of these three guys here. And let's just get rid of the new prefix in here. And then let's just have a quick look for where these are being used, because I think this is just legacy stuff that we didn't go around fixing. Okay, so that's that sorted. And then what we'll do is we just say that the element tag is literally just element, the attribute tag is just attribute, and the module tag is just module. And now, because this has to be symmetric, we just have to make sure that on the other side of the transform we are looking for the right things. So righty. So on one side we have the generation side, which is this guy here, and then the other side we have the reading side. So now what we need to do is to just build latest and generate or convert all org, convert all models to org. And then we hopefully should only see most interesting bug. I think we must have forgotten to set the tags. Typical copy and paste bug. We often have those here. To be honest, it's probably time to simplify the creation of affiliated keywords, perhaps. Well, to be honest, it's not too bad, I think. Let's just put a few blocks here. So inject all of the words into the document. I know these comments are probably debatable, but I think if you're OCD, it just helps you organize things a little bit. more than anything else. I think I do a lot of comments like that where I'm just actually just creating regions of space. Just so I know what's the logic of the function. I think just blocks of organization really. So process all elements into headlines recursively. Okay, that's just for my benefit more than anything else. And so what we can do is just rerun the transform. Right, okay, so, oops, didn't really want to rerun it yet again, but, right, so there you are. So now you can see the result of this change, which looks pretty healthy to me. Now, of course, you'd be tempted to just go and run all tests now, and that would fail because, of course, we only updated the model, the models in the Dogen product itself. First, before we do that, even let's just have a quick look at model and make sure that yeah, that looks all right. No movement here, and now if I just do a Control-C, Control-Q, let's see if I press E. Okay, the reason why that's not working just yet is because we need to open up the model again, I think. Oh, interesting. Let's have a look. Here we go, much better. See, as now you can see these are all the only thing, of course, is we do not want people to okay, that's good. The key thing is we do not want people to allow to put more than one at a time. So yeah, you can just choose one, but that's it. So that seems to be working okay. Can't remember what I was. Probably an attribute. Yeah. Okay, so that seems to have worked all right. I should have probably git stashed. Yeah, let's just stash everything and regenerate because all this messing around. Easy to break the models. Right, so we can't really test the generation of the so we can't really test the. We can't really run the test because we're not entirely sure. Well, not all models have been converted, so therefore there will be problems. But everything's a bit slow at the moment. I think I made the mistake of starting org Rome. That seems to slow down Emacs a fair bit. Okay, so there we are. See, we changed something there. Now, like I say, we can't actually run the tests because they're going to break. But what we can do is we can generate all org and see what happens. And lo and behold, it broke. Okay, but that's fine. It broke in a good way. So these are the non-generated models that we have. Go back to models. Let's just go to our library of models. So in here there is a library, and now if we just use grep, I'm just gonna grep for MASD underscore. Clearly we need a asterisk. Well, as you can see here, this guy is showing me every single guy, and I think we could easily say we'll grep just replace this with just that, and that probably will give us what we're looking for, I think. In fact, it may not quite give us what we're looking for, sadly, because right, so this is not ideal because the spacing is going to be off now. What's the best way to sort this out? It'd be annoying to have to go through every single headline to fix the spacing. We know exactly how many spaces there are. Perhaps you can just go back to Git. Okay, it wasn't saved yet. We could have not saved it, but fine. Okay, let's just go back to Git and discard these changes. Of course, because these things are all org, this is all going to trigger org Rome, making Emacs a tad slower than usual. But there you are. Okay, so let's go back to those models again. And what we'll do is we'll do that again. So I think all we need to do is to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces. So let's again go for the exact same approach, but this time we'll replace this with so this instead. And I think if the Emacs gods are with us, I think this should be the right spacing. Yeah, it is the right spacing. Okay, let's try an attribute. I don't think there are any attributes here. Right, there are packages though, so let's try packages. Even the boost model would have a package, I think. Module there is. It looks just about right. Okay, cool. And then, for good measure, because we're here, might as well also add our where are we? The tags. So if I just, I mean, I'm just going to do this manually. Of course, you could probably say, why not just use grep, but sometimes it's laziness that wins the day. Different kinds of laziness, I guess. Right, so these models are no longer going to be converted. We did a conversion, but it's just not worthwhile maintaining a JSON version of these models just for the occasional conversion. These will be superseded by the PDM work at any rate, so... Right, so now... if everything is going according to plan, and we should try to regenerate everything. Regeneration works as expected. There should be no differences. Yet again, our Chrome is doing something special. But there are no differences. These are expected differences, so... Okay, and I think it's all good. So now, we're going to have to unstage all this, I'm afraid. In fact, I think we need to commit everything in one go, because the tests would fail otherwise, I should think. Yeah, I think the test would fail, so we should probably need to commit both. So let's just say something like Codec improvements on org tags. So remove MASD prefix from org tags and add tags to documents. Okay. Right, so that would work. Now, of course, bear in mind, we can't actually do anything with this because all of the different products are not up to date. So there's the easy way and the hard way of doing this. We could, for a laugh, just regenerate, I think. Okay, sadly we have a really annoying problem at present. But such is life. So the quick hack we've been doing of late, because we removed support for compression, we haven't actually gotten around fixing this, quite annoyingly. We need to, really sad, but we need to manually rename this model to something else, and then rename it back. And we will fix this at some point, just have other things to worry about at present. Right, so now then, that addressed the reference implementation. So that looks good. I feel optimistic about this, so I think we should just commit this. So models. Right, so that resolved the C# problem. Sorry, C++ problem, should I say. C# is always a bit more complicated because we don't have a good build story yet. We need to move to .NET Core, so that hasn't been done yet, and it won't be done for a while. So let's have a quick look at Frozen, I think. So we'd have exactly the same problem in Frozen. In theory, we should be able to regenerate Frozen via the same target. So let's see what happens if we try to do that. So something like it doesn't really allow me to see the other story, the other history. Okay, something like cd. We don't even have a build output directory in Frozen because I was really keen on not confusing Frozen with normal Dogen. In fact, we don't seem to have a build directory. Oh, we do. cd master. I don't know why, but my shell completion is really bad. So if I just create an output directory here, I don't particularly want to make this too standard, so I'm actually just going to call it output instead of actually going for the compiler and everything. In fact, to be honest, CMake will probably do that for us, but and then what we'll do is we'll say cd blah de blah and then CMake .././ and then presumably we could just call if you need the generator, so maybe ninja, and then perhaps you could just say ninja cow. Right, so the slight problem we have is we need to set up VC package and all that sort of stuff. Okay, I'm gonna be a bit lazy, and I didn't really want to do this, but if it's the easiest thing to do, let's just copy the regular Dogen command line. I don't really want Frozen to become too much like Dogen, because Frozen is only supposed to be a test for compilation. So for instance, we're not gonna add any of these guys here. Just don't want Frozen to get confused, if you see what I mean. Right, so there's this VC package path, and then in here we want Frozen master, and then we want a Clang 11 build and with like a conversion. Interesting. There is no such target in Frozen. Right, now that is peculiar because we did try to make a copy of Dogen at that precise point in time. So there it is. So convert all org should have worked. Let's have a quick look at what we're doing here, because I think this is what I meant by being very careful to make sure we're not suddenly running things from the wrong directories. Very strange. Extremely strange, in fact. Okay. Perhaps the problem is this. Okay, cool, no worries. Right, there must be a way to tell it about the binary. It's getting a little bit hairy. We don't really want this to become too complicated. Right, so let's go back to compilation and let's just in Frozen quick check to see how the reference implementation does this. Because clearly the reference implementation must detect the Dogen CLI executable. Oh, and if I remember rightly, we do have a find package Dogen. So I assume... Right, so this guy here, we probably, all we do is we, if we look very carefully at how we build, we're gonna see somewhere a program path. Here we are. So this guy here is required. Right, so, okay, a bit of confusion, but it's all making sense. Right, so if you try again to run this guy, but this time we'll add the program path to take us to our version of Dogen, which interestingly enough that's an incorrect program path, but nonetheless. Right, so if everything went according to plan, it should have picked up the existing build of real Dogen that we've got, and it did. Then it went away and then it did the rest of the stuff. So now if I go back to Frozen and if I just do a quick git diff, you can see it regenerated all the models and it did, well, it did what we expected to do, right? So let's just commit all of that in Frozen. Right, so we can just push Frozen, that's not a problem. Although to be fair, we probably should have said generate all org, because this should generate no differences and it doesn't, so that's good. Okay, so that's Frozen taken care of. Presumably we've... Okay, we did not merge to master here. So integration. Let's just make sure that everything is being pushed. It's before we do a final push, because otherwise we will just get ourselves into a bit of a bother. Actually, one thing we did not do yet is we did not create mirrors with Frozen and the different version control systems we support. I'm not sure if we need to be honest. And now the most annoying one, C#. So for this particular guy, the only way to do things at the moment is just to use the shell. So if we just run this guy here. Okay, that was easy enough. And that seems to have also done the job. So let's just do that and push. Right, so with a bit of luck then, we should now be able to run the tests, because we've updated all of the dependent products. We are recording half an hour. Okay, so now then, we shouldn't really require any changes to Dogen itself. So let's do a quick build and let's just run all tests. So what we'd expect to see now is for Dogen to just take those models and for nothing bad to happen. And this means we also tested both sides of the operation, because we've first converted and then we're reading from the conversion. Now as you can see, the tests take a lot longer now. Ah, interesting. Very interesting. Now this is really unexpected. So we seem to have broken the C++ reference implementation and the C# reference implementation. And well, this is very unexpected because we didn't really change anything. Okay, let's just do a quick double check, make sure we're not doing anything silly here. So we did not change the directories for the implementation. Oh, okay, to be honest, let's just sync these guys up. We should just make sure we're using both from the same branch. Not that this will fix the problem, but just so we know, because we merged to master anyway. So right, so oops, I did not mean to do that. Right, so what we really meant to do is to run no test. Now let's just try to understand what's going on here. Oh, okay, something bad is happening at the moment. Very big mistake. We have done some changes recently to include the environment variable for frozen, and so you need to be very careful which command line we're running from. That was a mistake. Scuba error really, because now that's going to rebuild the whole Dogen. Okay, fine. At least it detected that the second time round we didn't change any of the environment variables, so just going to rebuild a few. Now let's try to understand why it is that we are generating code with a space in it. Actual line. The only explanation for this is that on the regeneration of the models we didn't really notice so according to this, the org, all of the org models are now have now got an extra space. Surprising. Let's have a look at the reference implementation. See, sadly, this is the kind of thing that takes a lot of our time. Bit annoying, really, because it's a very tiny change. It probably doesn't really matter, but we need to understand why it is that it happened. So, why are we having this problem then? First, is it on all models? Seems to just be the lamb model. Now, I thought we probably should have been a bit more careful when we looked at that diff. Perhaps we didn't really notice, but there were some other changes. So let's have a look at all the changes now. They don't look too bad. So according to this, we built in serialization, built-in test data, built-ins I/O. So everything to do with built-ins seems to have changed. So I guess the obvious thing would be to say, if I open up the lamb model, and if I look for built-ins, as you can see, there's nothing in built-ins here. No comments, nothing. We have code that does trimming, so that would have taken care of spurious spaces if there was one. It's not obvious why this would be. See if we did introduce any other changes by mistake. Pretty sure that all we committed was changed all the org mode models. Interesting that this guy's got a few dots, but nonetheless, the key thing here is that the only code that's changed is these two guys. So let's look more carefully then at the model to org and org to model transforms. We must have introduced a space somewhere by mistake. We would. This shouldn't have an impact. As you can see here, there's very little things that could have caused problems here. And now this is the other side of it, which is creating a model. The only changes are just as expected, so I can't really see what could have caused that to happen. We can't really test this with a reversion of these changes. Why is it that we always tend to have these very strange problems whenever we are recording, I wonder? So right, let's try to think about this. What is the easiest way to get to the bottom of this problem? What's interesting as well is why just certain specific models. So it seems that we have a problem when there's C++ ref impl, and then on the C# ref impl, and nowhere else. Now that is a bit of a coincidence, really. Why are both lamb models causing problems? So it seems to me that we are missing something here. So let's just go up to C++, and first let's just make sure that we definitely have no diffs here. We are pointing to... okay, so another thing we can do as well, for good measure, to make sure that we are really doing the right things, is we know the problem is with built-ins for whatever reason. Random comment. Let's just put a random comment here. And now let's just run the tests again. Now, what we'd expect to see is a diff with the comment that we just added. That would tell us that we're actually touching the right files. If we don't see that, that means that's some kind of configuration issue, which is entirely possible because, as I said, this is very complicated, the configuration we've got at the moment. So, right, so as you can see here, don't seem to have any mention of the random comment. Now, frozen is coming from master, everything else is coming from integration, which is what you'd expect. That should have definitely created a diff with the words random comment on it. So we are definitely doing something very wrong here. So that is correct. Okay, so before we do anything else, let's just double check, because we've had problems in the past where our utility methods were dodgy. So if I just go to test data, look for the C++ ref impl, and look for lamb, any reference to lamb. Okay, there's the lamp for dia. So we can just do a quick look, make sure that all these guys are pointing to the right places. That looks about right. That looks about right. That looks about right as well. So we're fairly confident that we're pointing to the right model name. Okay, so now the next thing we need to do is we need to double check the path to the C++ ref impl, just to make sure that this will take us to where we want to go. So if I just go up to, I don't know, the log file would do, just get a shell. Right, so if I just do ls and then projects, oh no, I'm projects already, so I just say models, cdp ref impl, models. One thing I did forget to check is to make sure that this is looking into the org directory, but clearly should. And then look for lamb here, language agnostic model. And then I should be able to just do, I'll just do an ls. Don't think I can do a git diff. if I just grep for a random, here we are, random comment. Okay, so we definitely are picking up the right file. I wonder if yes, there's something really strange about the setup here. So let's just be very careful. Sadly, this is where recording and full concentration clash, really. Something dodgy in the setup, which is not common here, but happens sometimes. Especially after you just introduce something new, such as frozen. So okay, all of this looks sensible. Another thing that we could have done, we recently have done a breakup of all the tests into their own files because we had a lot of problems with LSP, which is getting very slow. So let's just have a very, very close look at these new test files. I suspect we've done something strange in the file. I mean, obviously they've been passing thus far, but so the problem is specific to org and to lam. I'm just gonna put some debug on this guy here. So try to see if we can get some clues as to why this would be. To be honest, these are the sort of things that actually make Dogen development so much slower. It's whenever one of these issues happens, even though we have a lot of tooling to make our life easier, it's still taking too long to diagnose these issues. Sadly, we don't have the time to improve the tools, which is another of those kind of hilarious sort of issues. Right, so if I look for perhaps tests, right, so this is the guy. Now let's just very carefully try to look for something like the target. Still not convinced that we got the right model. It sure looks like the right model. I'll use the shell yet again. That looks very much like the same file. Okay, so definitely are processing the right file. Now the second question to ask perhaps is, we have some profiles for testing. I wonder if we touch the profiles somehow. It's not clear why this would only be a problem that affects lam though. And particularly the class for built-ins. Although to be fair, we do clip our diffs at 5, so it's possible that we have more than 5. So, in fact, that's likely. Let's just try to understand how the marker comes to be. So we have this notion. So if I just go up to Dogen, C++ rough implementation, projects, and then in here we have some kind of models. Okay, so now in here, let's just go back to Dia for a second, just because it's visual. You need to stop getting used to the visual view of the world, I'm afraid. But at any rate, so here we are. So this guy's here. Right, so this is the message that we're getting. This is a code generated file. And we have warning set to true. Let's just have a quick look at the, I mean, I really can't see why this would be, but let's just have a quick look at the profile. So if I just go back to C++ ref, and in fact, this guy would do. And if we just open up the profiles, now I just want to find basic and verbose in the model here. Right, so I wonder, I have no idea why this would be, but let's just put some kind of output here and then rerun these guys here. I mean, I'm already finding it very strange we're not seeing the previous change coming through. But we need to start to see, whenever we make a change to one of these external product models, we should really see that change coming through in the tests. I think that's very worrying that we're not. Ah, here we are. Okay. So that's good. So at least now we know that we are modifying the right thing. So it's not very clear why the first comment didn't cause any changes, but this did. Now, a very simple explanation for this would be that we forgot to... In fact, there is a very good explanation for this. I don't understand why this is only happening in lamb and only happening now. But the reason for this is that we have made a slight mistake on the documentation trimming. We forgot to look into profiles, perhaps. Let's have a look at that guy. So this is a generation marker, and we don't trim messages in generation markers, so that could explain it. So that's a good theory here. Now the second thing I want a good answer for is, why is it that when I've changed my lamb model, I'm not seeing changes? So let's do something a bit more extreme. We definitely want some big changes happening here. That change to the comment could have just been that because of the order of the diffs, we are not seeing the change to the comment itself. Not very likely, but it's possible. Okay, cool. So that makes me a little bit more confident that we're doing the right thing. So as you can see here, the name of the type changed completely when we made that change. Still not entirely clear why adding the comment didn't result in an obvious diff, as you'd expect, but there you are. So we'll leave it at that. Now what I think is the problem is, if I go to the document transform, we never bothered with element types such as profiles, I don't think. And I think that is our problem. So just gonna ad-lib slightly here, but I'd say something like, I don't know, would profiles be variability? Perhaps. And the profile will have, which is where we have to be slightly careful, because I'm not quite sure how this is modeled in the logical model. So if we look for profiles variability, perhaps. Right, so we have a notion of a profile, and the profile template. We just have to be careful, because I don't think profile here means what we think it means. No, actually this is probably right, actually. So the profile will have entries. Okay, so we will just have to say For each entry, I'm not entirely sure if we should call this attribute really, because it's not an attribute, but and then in here, if we just say abstract profile entry, yes, we should just call all these things V for value, because otherwise we'll be here all day long with looking for names. If it's irrelevant what the name of the thing is, choose the simplest. Right, so once we finally figure out the right incantations around here. Now, as you can imagine, I have absolutely no idea why this was not a problem before we started touching the model. But we can only confuse so many issues at a time, so let's leave it at that for the moment. So since we have profiles, we should also do profile templates, because this is bound to give us problems. Right. If you could. Okay. Now, let's just run this test again. So what we'd expect to see, if I am right, and the thing that's causing the problem is the fact that the profile has spaces here in the message, which is possible, would make sense. Trimming should help. Now, I don't really know why this was not a problem until now, but we'll have to look into that later. Okay, so that did not resolve the problem. But to be fair, that is something we should have done in the first place, so I think we'll leave that there. It's very interesting. It's not obvious what could be causing this problem. You can see there is no comment here, definitely. We are processing all of the entries, so this is a code generated file. What happens if we add lots of different spaces here? Spaces are a bit of a nightmare really, because up to now we wanted to give the content exactly as is, but if we do that, then the org mode files become quite compressed. Okay, so we have only okay, that's interesting, very interesting. Okay, so this is definitely not ideal, right? I've added all these spaces, and it seems to me our trimming is not working. Why would the trimming not work? Probably just looking in the wrong places, I suspect. It's because we are not being very clever here. What we really meant to say was the generation marker. Right, so, okay, that's fine. That's just the typical sort of brain slowdown that happens when you're recording. I don't know why I was looking at profiles. Really, what we meant to do is to look for decoration, and then in the generation marker there's a message, and that's what needs to be trimmed. So I think there'll be other stuff in there, but for now we will just assume, actually no, that's definitely not going to be sufficient. So what's inside of a generation marker? A message. So if I just basically say please trim the message, maybe that would give us bit ad hoc, I guess, but so let's have a look at what this does. Okay. Good news, bad news, I guess. So the good news is we solved the problem. The bad news is we now have another. So as we did in other places, we need to add at least one end line. Right, this is another dodgy hack that we've done in the past. Right, so if I look for decoration, I guess. Decoration transform, so the decoration transform is actually concerned with populating the decoration across the board. So this is not quite what we're looking for. But the idea here is that we need to somehow, if the decoration was not empty, the message decoration was not empty, we need to add a terminating end line. The reason being that we now got rid of all the end lines, including the terminating end line. Though having said that, I wonder if it would not make more sense to just regenerate this without that terminating end line. Because it'll be less hacky, really. It is true that you would not be able to put any more spaces now, but these are the kind of issues that are really profoundly annoying because it's just time wasting, really. Right, what can we do here? We could say that on the formatting of a decoration we just add an end line between the message and the content, if there is a message. I don't really like this sort of thing because we end up with a whole lot of special cases and they never quite remember how they work. But needs must, and if this is a really simple thing to do, right, so the name of this thing is generation marker, and there shall be a generation marker formatter somewhere with a message. So there you are. If the message is empty, then we output that message. Yeah, as you can see here, what's happening really is that this end line that was supposed to separate the message from the rest is now just basically giving us a new line. Now we have two options here. We could either, as part of the trimming, just add the one back, which is one way to do it, or as we did before somewhere else, which I can't quite recall, we did a quick hack, and where we're parsing things, we added a new line. So I'm just going to quickly do a very, very simple hack here to prove that this will solve our problems. Okay, so now we have a whole lot of other problems. Yeah, so the problem is we can't really compensate for the trim here because we can't assume that the trim has occurred. So really the right thing to do has to be to say where the documentation transform is taking place. This has to be the guy that's responsible for putting an end line here because this is the only guy that knows about the end line. So I'm just going to do another quick hack here. This is not ideal, but we need to move on. So what we'll do is we'll basically say let's just take the trimmed message. And actually we can't even do that because trim is doing all sorts of clever stuff. So no, actually I think it returns a string, doesn't it? It does. Okay, cool, that's fine. So we will trim, following the trim, if let's just record the message. So const auto message. After trimming we have a message, and then what we'll do is we'll put that message into the stream, and we add the end line there, and then we will reset the message presumably. And then we have to put a very large comment here for all this specialness, because we're never going to remember why all this crazy logic is here. Right, I suspect this will resolve our problem. It's annoying, really. We had such a clear way of handling white space, which was basically don't touch anything, which I quite liked. As you can see, it's all green now. So we had a very clear way of handling white space, which was very nice, which is the way we did things in Dia, which basically means whatever you put in this box is exactly what you're going to get, and this was very nice. They had some downsides. There was a couple of cases where a couple of corner cases, but the result was that when we moved to org modes, that was no longer possible, because we would end up with lots and lots of white space, because as you can see here, okay, so chaos going on again. 1 second, usual chaos. Yeah, so as you can see, the problem we had with org mode was that we could no longer just basically say take whatever we got from here, because the problem is there has to always be spaces before and after, otherwise org just looks weird. And we tried not having spaces and it didn't look too good. So with basically, but at the same time we don't really want our comments that are going to come to the source code to have a whole lot of spaces for no reason. So the alternative was to basically say, let's just trim top and bottom, and that was working alright. The slight problem occurs in cases where we had the expectation that the end line would be there, because when you trim everything, it trims the terminating line here, which is fine for most cases, but it's not so fine for others, like this particular case. So the only solution is to then add back the end lines in where they are required. So let's put a big comment here. Right, so the what is exactly this thing? So the message in the generation marker will lose its end line due to trimming. However, the end line is required to separate the different components of the generation marker. So we need to reintroduce the new line manually. This is a hack to compensate, to accommodate for how new lines work in org mode, org model. Right. Okay, fine. So massive comment here. Hugely inefficient approach. Lots of screen concatenation going on here. But that's not a big problem. We will just go with that. So okay, so as you can see, the very simple task that we had, which was supposed to be a 5-minute job, it's now converted itself into a very long task. Now we must not commit these separately. Like I think we will, although because the tests were not broken somehow before. This means the bisection is not going to work. I feel tempted to just commit these two together, just to make sure that we got something that's actually going to work. Added extra trimming. Well, the alternative is to actually put the trimming beforehand. Actually, that probably will work. I don't really like to commit too many things together. You probably will if you follow this channel. So let's just say we also don't want to put the debug on. So let's just say I can't even just do a quick test with this because of course nothing is going to work. So we will have to assume that this fix will not break the world, and I think it's probably fine. So sometimes you just have to do things like this. So logical add trimming for generation, markers and profiles. Okay, so that's that, and then we can now do the thing that we actually wanted to do, which is to remove the MASD prefix. Right, cool. Okay, so that is the thing we wanted to do, and we can close this story now. Rather more complicated than expected. Okay, so this has not yet been addressed because we cannot address that one until we get to the custom IDs. Now, since this video is already gone into best part of an hour and a half almost, don't think we'll have enough time to inject the custom IDs here. Let's give it a quick go. And before you do that, let's make sure we got the latest and greatest code generator, and make sure that there are no differences. We are actually at the moment generating both org mode and dia, just to be sure. Of course the test will pick this up anyway, but right, okay then. So now you may be wondering, I mean, this is a little bit worrying that the tests kind of oscillated. They were working before and they didn't work after we made a change that was apparently completely unrelated to this. What we tend to do in cases like this is we tend to rely the fact that we build for 3 different operative systems, and we build under very different conditions. So we build Windows and Linux on sort of whatever the builds are, and then we have the latest Debian latest here locally. That gives us enough confidence that if it is something that's intermittent, it will be triggered by the builds. There is quite a lot of builds that we do. So for example, if you look at one of these guys here, you see that it results in a number of builds here. So it is very likely that if we have a problem that's intermittent, these guys will pick it up. So I'm not going to worry about that right now. And what I am going to worry about is the custom ID. So what do our notes say? So we need to put in a custom ID as a property, I believe. And we just want to basically say if the custom ID is coming from dia, in other words, if an ID is coming in from dia, we would like to reuse that ID. Okay, and that should be easy enough. And then we just need to regenerate all models. Again, we're going to have to go to this rigmarole all over again. Regenerate all the models with a custom ID. Now, this is not going to move anything, but we just want to do this whilst we still have the ability to regenerate models, because otherwise we'd have to do this manually, which would be quite painful. So let's think about this. So we want everything except for the model itself to have a custom ID. So let's just look at the org model. So this will be what? An org and the model to org. Yeah, model to org conversion presumably. And what we want to do is on this conversion, we want to say right, as you can see here we have attributes and we have elements. Now I don't think attributes have IDs in dia. In fact, I'm pretty certain they don't, which makes life a little bit harder actually. Let's have a look. So if we just open up a dia model, such as CLI would do. So as you can see here, actually object type. So the problem I think is that once you enter the object has attributes. Such as this class, for example. Let's see if this class has any attributes. Here we are. And as you can see here, these attributes are just regular objects, not a top-level object. So they will have no IDs associated with them. I think that's alright. It's clearly not ideal for the future, but I think we're just going to have to leave it at that, because otherwise we're just going to get into ourselves into too big a problem to handle. So this will be added to a property drawer. In fact, I wonder if it will be added to a property drawer. I think actually it is not added to a property drawer. So let's just say custom ID org mode. I think we just have a custom ID at the top level. Oh no, I'm wrong. It is actually part of the property drawer. Okay, let's just see what happens if we do Ctrl+C+L to create an ID on an existing org model. Not quite that guy. I don't know why we call this import. It's actually screwing up my shortcuts. So Ctrl+C+L, I think it was. Oh, actually Ctrl+C+L just stores it, isn't it? So how do I insert an ID? Org ID. Right, so that creates an ID for interestingly some random spacing, but and so what exactly are we supposed to do? Forget about ID, use to generate unique identifiers, and use custom ID to insert it, and use Ctrl+X, Ctrl+C, Ctrl+X, P. Fine, so Ctrl+C, Ctrl+X, P. Custom. So we don't know the value. Okay, Ctrl+C, Ctrl+X, P. Custom ID, ABC. Okay, so we just have a custom ID set, and that is, which is interesting actually. If the custom ID could be anything, why not make it the dia ID? In fact, We may not even have to go to the whole rigmarole of pretending we have a grid. I think. So perhaps we could just say custom ID. Let's just have a quick look. I think we already have something like add element to property drawer. I'm not wrong. Here we are. So let's have a look for that guy, because I think it might just be the place. Here we are, and so we do. And this guy here is already doing all sorts of interesting things. Okay, let's just add, if we have a unique ID in the element, propagate it into org. Right, so what we're going to do then is something like if e dot containing element ID. No, we don't want the containing element ID. We want some kind of a. I wonder if we already have an ID. Now that will be a bit of a bummer if we do not. Right, so let's have a look at the org. No, the codec. Codec model. So we have a name, documentation, tagged values overrides, configurable, but nothing to do with IDs. So containing elements. Right, so this is actually quite annoying. So what's happening at the moment probably is that we are populating the containing element ID, and then we are using it. But having said that, I'm pretty sure that when we were doing the org mode processing, we checked for the parent ID. Where was that? Walk parent to child. So where is this parent to child container created? Right, we rely on the container. Okay, that's fine, but then question to ask is, walk parent to child. Okay, right, we rely on the provenance. Okay, well, if we rely on the provenance for this seems good enough to me. So we shall rely on the provenance for this here too. So if ID dot empty, in fact if it's not empty, so we'll add an ID, and here we could say custom ID, net ID. That seems sensible enough, and we could just create a custom ID around here. Right, so that sounds about right. Let's just regenerate a model and see how we get. If I say something like convert dogen.dia over to org, I'm not sure what happened there. And that seems to have done something. And then if I have a look at it, okay, right, there we are. So let's have a look at the model. So this was org. Struggling a bit with the typing today, I think. We wanted dogen.org. Here we are. So, oh, okay, interesting. It's coming after the stereotypes. Well, if it's not going to be at the top, let's put it at the bottom then. Oh, we can't even do that either because, sadly, we tried to piggyback on something that already existed. Which would have been nice, but to be fair, I'd rather have these guys somewhere stable rather than all over the place. So what we'll do is we'll look at element processing, and in here at the top I should think, okay. Right, so here we just want to create a drawer for the elements. Like I say, I keep doing this fairly random comments that I think if I was in a team, people would be annoyed by it now. But it just helps me organize code for some reason. It just seems like then you know what the block does. Documentation. You see what I mean? It's just that this way you can see what each bit of this code does. Add all attributes. And there we are. Now this is very clear what this method does. Okay, so I don't think that was a big problem. I don't think this is going to do anything because we are not using the custom ID at present. I think one slight problem with this approach actually is going to break the world, because the slight problem we have is that when the ID is coming at the other end, we need to intercept it. Otherwise, it will appear like a tagged value. In fact, I can just demonstrate this by doing a quick test. You will see that they will complain about a non-existent tag value custom ID if I understood this code. I suspect we probably are well into an hour and a half now. So as you can see here, the problem is now attempting to create a feature for custom ID, and we don't really want to start doing things like that, so we're going to have to intercept this. The best way to intercept it is to say when we are reading the tagged values at the other end, so org to model. So around here we're going to have somewhere a place to create tagged values, right? And now we need something to hold on to around here. So let's just say that there is let's think about this for a second. We need some kind of way to hold on to tag values as well as the rest. So let's just say that there is a struct of some kind here that contains the tagged values, but also we're private here, so let's say that there's a struct. We want all of these guys here, and then let's say that struct is called what would you call it? this is basically what is the result of processing a drawer. So process drawer, convert to drawer. Could say drawer contents. Well, I'm just going to call this process drawer. I mean, this is a terrible name, but sometimes it's good to just have a first stab at the problem, and then we could basically say string custom ID. And here we can now say process drawer. You can see we're not being very creative with names. That's what happens when it's late in the day, I think. So the idea will be then that we will intercept whatever that tagged values guy is doing. And if we do find a custom ID, we'll split it out of the tag values. Not exactly the most elegant solution, but you'll get what we're trying to do, I should think. Right, so before we start creating a tag value, we shall normalize the key. And then we could say check for any special keys. And here we could say if key is equal to custom ID. Well, we definitely need some kind of return type. And we could just say something such as right, there's a custom ID, and now we could say something like if we found the custom ID, actually please just do custom ID equals to the value. Else, and we don't really need this. Oh, maybe we do, because we probably should add some logging, because sooner or later we're going to have a problem with this. Oh, I should probably say intercepting. Key is this. Value is this. Okay, and hopefully this will now enable us to all other properties are assumed to be Dogen metadata. So now we can just create our tagged value, push it back over to the tagged values collection, and then just return our R. Right, so this is really good. Now then, well, within reason, I guess. Now, we could just basically say, please process drawer, make process drawer, and that could be age.drawers, presumably. And then we could say tagged values are going to be pd.tagged values. But in addition, well, in this particular case, it doesn't really matter because we don't really expect the custom ID to be in the attribute. Although, to be fair, we should probably cater for that if we do decide to do that in the future. So at present it's being slotted into the provenance, so here's the codec model. So let's just create the provenance, I should think. So if not clear that attributes have provenance, if I'm honest. Well, they do. So if pd.customid.empty empty so let's try to create some provenance here. I mean, ideally we'd have other things in the provenance, such as the file line and so on, but let's just go with this. So we have a couple of things here. Right, let's just go large and do a using at the top, I should think. So what we can now do is to say, okay, let's create the provenance. Let's say that the codec ID is equal to the codec ID of the pd.customid, and then let's handle the tag value. So now similarly for elements, in fact we are going to be quite generous here and just process the drawers everywhere in the same fashion, even though the expectation is that only elements are going to make use of this. So elements may not have drawers, something like this, or drawers are optional for elements. I'm not sure we're talking any sense at this point in time, but something like this, and then finally the exact same thing. And we'll just do that for the document. So so we just need to see if there are anything. If there are, do the usual processing, sets all the bits and pieces, and then let's finally set the drawers. Drawers in document. I don't know, should we really bother talking about the custom IDs? I'm not sure. Fine. So now then, with a bit of luck, nothing bad's going to happen. That's what we're really looking for. We are really running out of time now. Almost 40 past. Okay, something really bad happened. Feature not found. I think we may have forgotten to... Oh, interesting. That actually looks sensible to me. So, think about this for a second. So, if the key is... So So going to the drawer contents, going to the contents of the drawer. If the key is empty, there is a problem. And we normalize the key to lowercase. Check to see if the key matches our custom ID. If it does, we retrieve its value. Now we seem to be generating an empty feature. That is very puzzling. That would only happen if we were pushing. Okay, here we are. Very clever. That's what happens when you're actually not fully concentrated. Be absolutely honest, we could probably just without any loss of clarity state the following. Right, and that now allows us to pass all tests as we'd expect, because we're not really making use of the tagged value. And now we can simply we could generate all models. Okay, we probably want the latest code generator. And so what we now need to do is to go through all the models, generate them across all the different products that we support. Okay, that was not quite what I meant to do. What I really meant to do, since all tests pass, we could just basically say Codec adds support for custom IDs in org mode Codec. This was fine because all the models are still green, and now instead of a cow, what we really want is a cow. And that would now show us a whole lot of IDs, and these IDs are as per the diagram. They are not unique, but they're no worse than the existing IDs. And then we should just say, please run all tests. Should be no difference. While we wait for that, we should just say models generate org models with custom IDs. In elements perhaps. Okay, and that now gives us the final product we'd like for org. See, there is no custom ID here, but there is custom ID everywhere else. It's still not too sure about the top for the custom ID. I might go for the bottom. I mean, being a bit of a being a little bit OCD here, but sadly we're not really going to get a chance to change this again. So whatever we decide, we might as well be happy with it, because once we let go of the diagrams, anything changes would have to be done by hand. So let's just generate all, or now convert all org. Yeah, that seems a bit more sensible, I think. Top or bottom? Neither looks good, to be honest, because custom ID is in uppercase. In fact, maybe that's what's really annoying me, is the fact that custom ID is in uppercase. Let's try custom ID in lowercase. Org doesn't seem to be too bothered, so yeah, I think the problem was definitely not the fact that it was before or after. It was the fact that it was in uppercase. think I will resume the previous position and just generate everything in lowercase. We do support both uppercase and lowercase. It doesn't really matter because we lower the key, but we just want it to be. I mean, we're going to spend a lot of time with these models, so might as well make them readable. And that looks about right, I should think. Custom ID. Doesn't look too bad. But I think at this point there is really no better way of doing this, so we just stick to that. Let's just uncommit that last commit, recommit it again. And that would do. Excuse me. On the plus side, we could always uppercase it and lowercase it as required. Because then we can just do a grep, so that's easy. Right, now then, I think we've stopped. Oh yeah, we stopped clocking. Where did we stop? 1650, so if I just... okay, so we are definitely not going to have enough time to remove the JSON models now, the JSON and dia models. So what we're going to do is we'll just end here. Hopefully this was sufficient to give you a good view of what we're doing there. We more or less finished the interface, I guess, the org interface for the model. That is what you see here. And from now on, we will remove all the dia models that we have in Dogen, and we will just rely on the org models. Given we've got frozen, we don't have to worry about breaking support for dia, because we still have exactly the same amount of support as we have at present. Frozen test will break, so that's good. But at least we've bootstrapped the org models to a level that we're happy enough with. So I think that was pretty satisfying, I guess, as my kid would say. Okay, that's all for this session. Thank you.